Hey, you found the Sales Hunter podcast. I'm Mark Hunter. And today, again, we have got a great topic, great show. Sales metrics. Do they matter? And do we even know how to measure them? Hey, today's guest, Matt Heinz, will address that issue and more. Let me tell you something. Few people understand sales and the tech space in particular better than Matt. He's the founder, CEO of HeinzMarketing. His pulse on the industry is driven not just by his incredible client list, but also by the weekly meetups he has with CMOs and his podcast, Sales Pipeline Radio. So, hey, let's get him in here. Well, let's roll the video first.
You're listening to the Sales Hunter podcast with Mark Hunter, where the focus is to help you as a sales leader sell with confidence and integrity. And now here's your host.
See, I was so excited to have you on the show. I just kept you on the screen the entire time. But before you start talking, let me tell you something. Hey, we're excited to say that we've been ranked as the top new sales podcast for 2022 by iTunes. If your company, hey, and by the way, if your company's not had me speak at one of your sales meetings, we need to talk. Reach out. Let's get the Sales Hunter in front of your sales team. Okay. With that, Matt, welcome to the show. Always great talking to you. You are so incredibly smart.
Well, thank you. I don't have a pre-roll on my podcast. That's pretty impressive. And I will say, though, you didn't pay me to say this, but if you haven't seen Mark speak, if you haven't had him in front of your sales team, especially if you have a team, if you are a sales professional, if you're kicking off your year now, next month, if you need a kick in the pants halfway through the year, Mark is your guy. Highly knowledgeable, highly entertaining. The joke level, I would give a 7, 8 out of 10. It's good. It's not like, 10, but it's good. But the insights and the best practices are 11. So
okay. My kids would say it's only about a 2 or a 3. Okay.
That's what kids are supposed to do, right?
You're right.
Literally, like my daughter got me this book for Christmas. It's the 400 dad jokes book.
Dad jokes.
My daughter and I are huge dad jokes fans. My wife and sons hate it. So my daughter and I will be cracking up and they're just like, please go somewhere else.
Yeah. And see, the joke so well that you and your daughter just call out a number 122 and you crack up laughing, right?
You have to say you just start laughing is right.
That's right. And that could be one of the sales metrics. So how was that transition? So let's talk about sales metrics because you're pretty passionate. You and I were together about a month or so ago. Mm-hmm. We spent the day talking about sales with some other really smart people who have been on this show. We'll let people figure out who those people are later. But anyway, let's talk about sales metrics.
Yeah.
Where do we get them wrong?
Oh, well, I mean, I think that the things that make me nuts about sales metrics are the same things that make me nuts about marketing metrics, and that sometimes we focus so much on the means we don't really compare them and connect them to the ends. Like I see CMOs all the time, well-meaning CMOs put into their dashboards things like clicks and likes and retweets and even sort of marketing qualified leads, which in many cases is defined by someone that raised their hand. Doesn't matter what company they came from. Doesn't matter whether that company is someone you should sell to. Doesn't matter whether that person has any buying power. But if they sign up for a webinar, all of a sudden they're an MQL. So it's a volume-based game that we see run amok. And I see the same thing in sales dashboards. Just because you made more phone calls doesn't mean you made the right phone calls.
How did we get into this chaos of volume-based? Because I'll tell you what, I mean, I hear the word MQL and I want to barf. I want to throw up.
Yeah.
Because it just means somebody went to a website.
Somebody went to a website. Without naming names, somebody wrote a book that said, when I grew one of the fastest growing, most successful software as a service companies in the world, here's how I did it. And somehow that, not just that book, like that methodology has become the Bible for how venture-backed companies are saying they should sell. And there's a spreadsheet that says, if you make this many calls, if you send this many automated emails, if you spam the world enough with the, will you take a meeting? Can I have a meeting? Will you give me 15 minutes? You'll get enough meetings. Now, the problem, Mark, is that some companies do. You do that math right. You send out enough crap, some people are going to respond. But the scorched earth impact on the people that don't buy from you, that you should be selling to, but now see you as every other crappy salesperson, is what keeps you from getting more of the deals that you want.
Well, my feeling is this: even a blind squirrel will find an occasional acorn. Yeah. So if you send out enough stuff, it's going to be there. And this whole thing of, I think, just do enough activity. I think it's all driven just to raise the next round of venture funding, the next round, money. It's not about helping the customer. It's about raising money. I mean, is that a fair answer in the tech space?
I mean, it's not a universal truth, but it is certainly a truth for many companies. I mean, your friend and mine, Brent Adamson, if he were here, you wind him up. This is a 15, 20-minute rant at minimum for him. The idea that like companies aren't always built for success. They aren't always built for customer success. They're built for an exit. Like a company says, like an investor says, I don't need this company to be sustainable. I need them to be valued high enough so that I can monetize my investment. And that focus is against what most customers need. It points you in a direction of being a worse salesperson, not a better salesperson.
I sat with a CRO about 6 months ago, and the only thing he cared about was the exit strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Every metric he measured was around the exit strategy.
Yep.
Nothing about the customer.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you go, wait a minute, how does this dog hunt? It don't. Yeah.
Well, and if you're selling for a company that doesn't care about anything but the exit, maybe that strategy short-term helps you. But if you look in the broad swath of selling organizations across the globe, most organizations are not in that mindset. You
Right.
get into what, like you and I have sort of heard described sometimes as dirty industries. We do a lot of work with companies in the manufacturing space. These are companies that we have a client that's been around for 140 years. And it's likely going to be around for the next 140 years, right? I mean, they are not focused on an exit. They are focused on customer value. And the way that they treat their sales team, the way they train their sales team, the way they get their sales and marketing teams to work together is for lasting impact, for organization, for their brand and their customer. Let me give you another example. I think where this is broken. A couple months ago, I read an article by a guy he's a reporter. And reporters get pitches from PR people all the time. And he said he took a day and he said, for this one day only, I'm going to say yes to every meeting that comes across my desk. And he wrote about it and it was phenomenal. So I said, well, what if I responded to every piece of sales email I got for a day? So a couple weeks ago, I did it, Mark. I woke up, I had to clear my schedule. This is how bad this approach is. I had to clear my schedule for the day. So I had enough time to respond to all those emails. Out of probably 38 emails I responded to, so it wasn't like hundreds. I was 38 prospecting emails in a day, a typical Wednesday. I got 4 responses. Now, it could be that people, once I responded to someone, then they looked me up and said, oh, he's not an enterprise CMO. He runs a 20-person consulting firm. They're not our target, so I'm not even going to bother respond. That means those salespeople, that means what? 39 minus 4, 35 companies spent time and effort trying to reach out to me when I wasn't anywhere near worth following up on, even though I responded to them. What does that say?
Well, that says Scorched Earth. I mean, that's hashtag Scorched Earth right there. And that's part of the problem, because I think it is just this game of if we do enough activity. Now, this comes back to this whole piece of it is a law of diminishing return. The more crap we send out, the weaker the results. And yet, for some reason, because of the potential, companies want to send more and more. So how do we get that MQL and SQL more aligned? SQL being sales qualified leads, for those of you listening who don't.
Yeah. I think about 2 things on a regular basis. I think about a lot of things on a regular basis. I think about how to make our customers more successful with their sales and marketing strategy. And then as an owner of a growing consulting firm, I think about how do we become more successful? How do we grow? How do we stay healthy and active? And in that second part, when I think about my business, what I've learned, in some cases the hard way, but I've learned is that we get bigger by doing less. We are more successful by focusing on fewer things, not more. Most companies don't drown, Mark. Most companies don't starve, they drown. I screwed up my own message. They don't starve, they drown because they try to do too many things. It is a really scary thing to commit to 1 or 2 things and then really make them work. It feels safer to say, I'm going to try 8 things and figure out which one of them work. You will do 8 things in a half-assed way and likely not be successful with any of them because you didn't invest the resources to do it. Same thing applies to prospect list. If I email enough people, if I reach out to enough people, I'll figure out which of them want to buy. That is not a sustainable strategy.
If you're on Interstate 90 heading into Spokane right now, you want to hit the brakes and stop, and you want to back this podcast up and listen to the last 45 seconds of what Matt just shared, because that was gold. Seriously, that was absolutely gold what you shared, because you're right. It is about less becomes more, and yet few companies understand it because they don't want to put all their eggs in one basket, so to speak.
Right.
They're scared. Well,
and I would say, like, okay, like, you know, for the sales professional who's listening to this podcast right now or watching us on LinkedIn, like, the same applies to you. You need, if you're a BDR listening to this, if you're an account executive, if you're out in the field with a bag, you can't do everything. You could work for 24 hours a day and still not get everything done. What activities, what of your efforts is the highest impact things you could do? How do you focus on doing less and doing them better so that you can be more successful with that time and sort of actually sustain yourself through what is not just this month or this quarter's quota, but the rest of your career?
Wow. I've got a theory I want to run past you, because I see this in top performing salespeople. I get to study that top 1%. And one of the things that I've learned that I see is that extremely repetitive, extremely focused. They stay very, very in a very tight niche.
Yeah.
And they do simple tasks frequently. Just repeat, but it's a very narrow piece.
Heck yeah.
Why don't companies understand that? Why don't they understand that?
It feels like you are going after too narrow of a market. It feels like you don't have enough market opportunity to go after. But if you are seen as the best in the world at your focus area, right? Like, I went to a conference, I think it was actually the week after we got together in Dallas. I went to a conference called Mind Your Own Business, and it was like 150 owners of small marketing agencies. And it was clear that most people in the room had a niche, and everyone defined the niche in a different way. But some people said, like, you know what? I am branding for healthcare companies, right? Or I am creative development and creatives and website development for tractor companies, right? I mean, it was, if you have a specific focus. I remember meeting a guy once at a networking event, and he was like a financial services rep. He's only worked with public school principals and administrators. That was his niche. He knew what they cared about. He knew what their retirement plan looked like. He knew what kind of compensation plan and opportunities they had. He knew them better than anyone else did. Now, did that constrain his opportunity, or did that accelerate his opportunity and pipeline by being the best in the world at that niche?
It accelerated his pipeline, because we also have to get out of this mindset that we're constrained by geographical constraints. We're constrained by that. Again, he's going after one very, very small slice of the education arena. And think about that. That's still massive, massive, massive. Yeah. Now, if you're Coca-Cola, okay, it's not a big enough audience. But excuse me, 99% of all companies out there aren't Coca-Cola or Nike. And even
now
Nike
we get into
has
sort of brand strategy,
audience.
Right? Where you got where you got like Bud Light Seltzer, where they're going after a market that exists. But like, I've seen ad campaigns where they chose to call it Bud Light Seltzer, and I've seen ad campaigns where they've got a guy covering up the Bud Light because they think it's confusing. You confuse people. So if you want to go after that market, call it Michelob Ultra or something else. Same company. This is getting a portfolio brand strategy. That's the way you go after it. But you cannot be all things to all people. And we've seen, like, it's bloodier than Macbeth when you see companies go after that side of the market. And they just, you become all things to all people, and then you're master of none. And that's when your market share deteriorates. And if you're doing that, you better hope that there isn't a startup nipping at your heels that can't wait for you to lose your focus.
Well, years ago, I cut my teeth in the consumer packaged goods arena. And, the brand names we had out there, whether it be Maxwell House, whether it be Jell-O, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, it was. And you wind up extending them to every possible niche. And today, look at those brands. They're totally irrelevant out there in the marketplace.
Yeah.
People have to stay focused. We got to stay focused.
You got to stay focused. You got to know what you're good at. You got to know where your time is best spent. It's not more calls. It's better calls. It's not more emails. It's better emails. It's being more valuable to the people you're talking to than someone who's just spraying and praying. I guarantee you, as soon as we finish recording this, I'm going to check. If I check my email, I'm going to see the exact same templates over and over again. It's all about the seller and not me. It's all about them wanting my attention without offering anything in advance. Right?
I got a new email response the other day. It said, "You're harder to reach than the Pope." And that was the subject line.
Thank you.
And it was like, well, great. I'm glad I'm up at that level. Yeah. And then it listed all these stupid reasons. And again, it's that there are so many stupid templates running around out there. And it's funny, but I'm waiting to see the next one. You're harder to reach than the Pope, because I know then that somebody else is going to pick that up. Somebody else is going to pick that up, and it's going to run.
There's a secret swipe file on the dark web somewhere where I swear, like, people are sharing these templates with each other. Sometimes the analogy I use, Mark, is like, if you're a salesperson and you're driving by someone's house at 40 miles an hour, if you're prospecting, you're just trying to get something in the mailbox, right? And look, your prospects are busy. We don't have to go down that road. Like Jill Conrad does a phenomenal job, like showing and pointing out and sort of quantifying the hyper busy executive you're trying to reach out to. So you're not going to get their attention the first time, maybe the second time. What you need to ensure, though, is that once they check their mailbox, if you got something in there, you have a couple seconds to get their attention. Are you going to make it in the house, or are you going to end up in the recycling bin right away? I got a friend of mine who does direct mail, and he is fully aware that he is designing garbage. He said, I'm designing something that will end up in the garbage right away or in 30 seconds. But that's the difference I'm looking for. I want to figure out how to get a message across to someone so that they will either respond or be receptive to the next message. Do you make it in the house, or are you designing garbage that goes right in the recycle bin before you even get in the house?
I love what you're talking about. And that means the metric we need to be measuring are the first 6 or 7 words in that email we send out. It's that subject line. Yeah. That's the metric that counts, because is it generating the response? But it's not, let me bounce this to the top of your inbox. Or
the other problem with the metrics we look at is for the companies, depending on who's listening to this, if you're doing an enterprise sale, if you're selling something, it could be a one call close. And many of you may be. Like, I worked for a company that was selling to residential real estate agents. Like, they're a CEO of a business of one. They can pull out their credit card and pay for something. That's fine. But if you have a considered purchase that is going to take some time, if you've got multiple people in the buying committee that need to reach consensus to make a decision, that one email, that one phone call, that one tactic is not the be all end all. That is part 1 or part X in a body of work. So when we talk about metrics, too often we get infatuated with individual transactional point metrics, and we aren't looking at the body of work across multiple channels. I guarantee you the first email you send to someone is not going to get a response, but it's going to generate an impression in their brain. So the next time they see your name, the next time they see your brand, they might subliminally remember, boy, last time I saw that was kind of funny. Last time I saw that was actually good. Last time I saw that made me smarter. I wonder what they have to say now.
That's why it took me 26 emails and phone calls to you, and being able to sit in an all-day meeting in Dallas, Texas with you to get you to appear on my podcast.
Mark, I am busier than the Pope, so sometimes it takes a little while to get through to me. That was just too easy. But no,
that was an easy layup. That was
you know what? Listen, we get to that point. You know, I've known you for a long time, and it was a slam dunk to say, like, you want to be in a podcast? Are you kidding me? Like, I get to be associated with the other people you get on there, let alone you. Slam dunk. We get podcast requests all the time. I get people that want to be on my podcast all the time. Like, they're not building relationships. They're not providing value. They're not helping me understand what I get out of it as well. They're simply asking for something in a transactional way. Think about what you respond to. Think about what's going to get your attention. Think about what is going to annoy you if someone just asks for something without implying anything about what they're going to get in return. The answer is almost always no.
Oh, well, that brings up what I always say, is that your reputation arrives before you do.
Yeah.
You know, this is where trust more than ever is playing into the sales process, because customers have choices. Mm-hmm. They have plenty of options out there. And they didn't wake up in the morning saying, oh, wow, I hope Matt Heinz's company calls me today and pitches me on consulting services that I don't need, because I'm not even needing that type of work. So let's come back to this whole tailoring. How do you guide your clients in getting them to tailor their message?
And to tailor their message, the longer you wait to talk about yourself, the better off you're going to be. Serious Decisions, which was bought by Forrester a few years ago, they had a really great buying journey sort of framework that I still reference on a regular basis. And a couple of the first stages in that buying journey, beyond just like awareness of who you are, awareness that you exist, one is to challenge the status quo, to reframe a status quo. And the second is to get a commitment to change. Neither of those stages have anything to do with you or what you sell. Both of those stages have to do with the customer, the buyer, the prospect, how they think about their business, how they think about themselves, and how they then commit to something different to improve their position. Brent Adamson talks about the 3 reasons people make those decisions to commit to change. 1 is for the benefit of their company. 2 is for the benefit of them personally. And 3 is to improve their identity. What does this commitment to change, a commitment to a different outcome, a commitment to a different trajectory for this result, what does that imply for the company? What does it imply for their career? What does that imply about that buyer's identity? Those things, the answers to those questions have nothing to do with what you're selling and everything to do with the buyer, but that is the key to getting a commitment to what is almost always going to be a complex buying journey, consensus internally, working through procurement, getting everyone on board to go through the pain of change that no one wants to do. But is the outcome worth it? Is the commitment to the outcome worth it for the company as well as to you deeply enough? That's what's important.
And now there's a new metric that you're going to be held against, because I had Brent on my show here about a month ago. Brent Adamson, co-author of The Challenger Sale, incredibly smart. He's a good friend of both of ours. Of course, you do your show with him every Friday morning. Hopefully you're going to get going again with it quickly, because Brent took time off for the holidays. Come on, what a slacker. Anyway. But we're going to quickly see whether or not your downloads exceed Brent. So I will be actively reporting that on LinkedIn on a daily basis.
If Brent's listening, I don't think I've told him this, but it's pretty clearly implied. It's called Coffee with Brent and Matt for a reason. Like, I am milking Brent's reputation and brand and notoriety as much as possible. And just honestly, the more he talks on those things, the better. But I don't know about you. Like, the more time I get with someone like a Brent Anderson, right, who not only has done the research and who has talked to and listened to many sales organizations, but the way his brain works and can translate what he sees into new insights and questions. Oh my gosh. Like, I listen to people like that all day long.
Okay. Now let's run down a side path, because this is really cool. It is amazing when we hang out with really smart people, what we pick up. I've sat in several meetings today with some really smart people, and it's amazing what I've learned. And I think that's the value of podcast with guests like you on here. Much more so than Brent Adam. No, I will.
No, you know what? It's I think you find in people are influential in one of 3 ways. Some people are simply charismatic, right? They may not know what the hell they're talking about, but they're really good at talking about it. And that's a real thing. Some of those people know what they're talking about, and that's even better, but some people are just charismatic. Other people have been doing it for too long. Right? Like, for those of us that have been around, who have seen a lot of at-bats, who have the experience and can speak from experience, that's good too. But the third one is just insight through intelligence. You can be a 22-year-old college kid, but if you go and interview 10 CROs in a particular space and coalesce and summarize what they think about their industry, what they think about sales, you have an insight that didn't exist before. Right. And so understanding how and why someone has that insight is really important to understanding like what you can do with it.
And that is the fundamental piece of marketing, really. And a fundamental piece of sales is understanding the customer in a way better than the customer even understands themselves.
Well, instead of, don't ask them what keeps them up at night. Tell them what should be keeping them up at night. Right. I mean, you get to know them enough, or get to know enough to ask them questions. Like one of the most influential mentors in my career, I guess my life really, has not always had the answers, but he's known how to ask the right questions.
Ooh.
And the idea of the question he's asking and helping me reframe the way I think about something simply based on the way he asked that question is invaluable. I don't need him to tell me what to do. I need him to invite me to commit to that thinking myself. That, you talk about a commitment to change. I don't need a salesperson to tell me to commit to change. You give me insight that can help me do it. That is so much stronger.
Yeah. Which really says that we need to spend far more time developing the questions we're going to ask rather than the information we're going to share. because that's how it's going to lead us to the right metrics. Hey, we are running out of time here on this. And I take just a moment. How can people follow you? Because you talked about coffee with Brent and Matt.
Yeah.
Tell the audience about that.
So I got a bunch of stuff. Find me on LinkedIn. We have coffee with Brent and Matt so Brent Adamson and I on a Friday mornings. We call it the morning zoo. Basically, I have a couple topics or questions, just kind of spin them up and mostly just let Brent rant. Those are the best episodes. So check those out on LinkedIn. You can check out salespipelineRadio.com, our every other week podcast. We interview people like Mark and other smart people in sales and marketing for 25, 30 minutes. A lot of fun. And then, would love to connect with folks on LinkedIn, learn more about you, what you're working on. I think you're right, Mark. I mean, the more we talk to each other, the more we learn from each other. Every single person in this profession has experience, has a story to share, has a perspective to add to make all of us better at what we do.
Hey, that's great. And with that, we got to say thanks for listening. The value and the content shared has been worthwhile. And you'll take a moment to subscribe to the podcast and rate and review it on your favorite podcast app. Hey, each week you get 2 episodes, one with just me talking about a solo topic and another with a great guest like today, Matt Heinz. Hey, the Sales Hunter Podcast. It's your source for cutting edge insights. I'm Mark Hunter, and today's guest, Matt Heinz. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.